do I make this video without pissing off the entire D&D community?
Monks aren't bad, you're just bad at the game!
No, that's not it.
You're dummy idiot!
That's too aggressive. Monk gets a bad rap. People have said it's the worst class since Ranger got its update and Fighter got unarmed fighting style and Tasha's, but even if that were the case, I'd argue that it doesn't matter at the end of the day anyway. It's a team game. No one should be a one-man army. If the sole focus is power, then this isn't a video for you. There's plenty of optimizer power gaming min-maxing videos out there to scratch that itch. I went to college for art, not math. A lot of the issues people seem to have stem from the lack of damage potential, and then we'll multi-class the crap out of it so it's basically unrecognizable from its base, or simply ignore the class entirely. If this class isn't fun for you and you want big damage, then go play a wizard or a fighter. That's fine, but there's something great here for those who give it a chance. My 3 beefs with the class. So while Monk is my favorite class, I do want to get out of the way my 3 issues, and then we can get to the meat and potatoes. 1. Starting damage should be a d6. When fighters and barbs can fight with great swords and great axes with 2d6s or a d12 at level 1, it's a little silly that Monk has to stick with a d4 for unarmed attacks until level 5. No other class is forced to use a d4. At minimum, building decks for fighter or rogue with a short sword is a d6. Even bard with vicious mockery, even though its sabers suck, is still more useful because of its uncommon damage type and the ability to inflict disadvantage on a target. An unoptimal druid can cast Shillelagh on a stick and have a d8 for a minute as a bonus action at level 1. A nature cantrip gives druid a damage die twice as good as someone who's supposed to be good at this. This video isn't about numbers, but it is about game feel. Nerfing the class like this sucks. And in home games, my friends and I homebrewed that monks start with a d6 to mitigate the weak feeling at the start. And the UA for the 2024 PHB upped it to a d6, so WotC understands that complaint at least. 2. Step of the Wind should be free. If rogues can bonus action dash for free, so should Monk. It'll save key points, and have it feel less point hungry in the early levels. The class is supposed to go fast, so let it go fast all the time. Is there a niche case of the hasted tabaxi monk with boots of speed going ridiculously fast? Sure, but that's funny rather than practical in most situations. 3. Let them use the smallest of martial weapons outside of Kensei, please. The best thing that they have is a quarterstaff with a d8, but only if you two-hand it, which, of course, that's what you're going to do every time until you can do d8s on your own. There's some weird restrictions even with the added optional feature of dedicated weapon. It takes out, like, anything good or flavorful by needing to be already proficient in it. I understand it's to promote the fun out of kicking the crap out of people with your fists, but let me swing around a glaive or something. Just a small list of additional weapons from the martial list. The one with martial arts can't use martial weapons? Boo! Surprise 3.5! Timeless Body is kinda lame when it shares the same name as the Druid one, yet they function completely differently. No aging magically and no frailties of old age. How does one mechanically do the frailties of old age? Cringe. At least you don't need to eat and drink anymore. At level 15, where the playstyle of the game is shifted away from survival aspects. Cool. And that's it. DMs don't know how to deal with monks. If you're a DM and you tell me that monks are broken, you tell me exactly what kind of DM you are, and let's be honest, it's only Stunning Strike. It's just Stunning Strike. If players can consistently easy mode encounters with one use of Stunning Strike, then maybe use something with a high con save, or give bigger monsters legendary resistances. Nothing has to be exactly like the book. An easy mode fight every once in a while might only be bad for you, and an attitude check might need to be considered. Also, if you're a DM that makes Stunning Strike count for magical resistance, please stop. Monks are good because they're anti-magic. Like I said, just use high con monsters or legendary resistances if you don't want your monsters to get stomped. Please. On the flip side, if you have a monk who feels underpowered, or table hesitant to play one because of their community reputation, here's a few things that could help. Remember, Stunning Strike is great at burning through those legendary resistances. It can help casters save their big spells. Not only this, there's also plenty of ways to make the monk feel cool outside of damage. With their speed and lack of need for armor, or most weapons, puts them at an advantage in many situations. While the easiest one is to do a ball or a present episode where the party is stripped of their weapons and armor, you don't need to weaken everyone else to show off the monk. 3 examples of what I mean. The ability to go fast is one that should be utilized more. In a scenario I was in, we had to rescue 3 people, give or take. Me being the only one with a halfway decent strength score. I was able to carry 2 of them, they were size category small, on my back and get them to safety, and was able to go back and help because I could move faster than everybody else. In an idea you're more than free to steal, a scenario with an artificer or an inventor has a magnetized ceiling and flips a switch while having the party's weapons and armor get stuck. The switch is on the other side of the room where the monk can easily get to it and flip the switch, leaving the party only capacitated for a round at most and be an interesting obstacle in the way. Let me paint a picture for you. It's Tomb of Annihilation. You found the ship in the trees. You explore the ship in the trees. There are several undead 4-armed orangutans that will run your fate with 5 attacks a turn. Now imagine you're me. I decided to play wizard for that game. And wizards are squishy. My husband was playing monk at the time. And during the fight, when everyone was bailing, I was at low health, and 4 of these stupid things were still up. What he was able to do was hit each and every one of them, use Disengage from Drunken Master Monk, stun at least 2 of them while grabbing me, and jumped off the boat and used Slowfall to get us to safety while I 4th level fireballed them to death as we floated back down. In any other scenario, it would have been even more dangerous, as my husband would have been able to have the opportunity to both disengage and have the speed to get over and save me. That module's rough, y'all. And now some quickfire DM tips for monks. The phrase is called shoot your monks for a reason. Let them use deflect missiles. It's one of the coolest abilities in the game. Let the monk be cool. Utilize short rests. Key points will feel less restrictive if you make use of that mechanic. Aside from the hit die and needing to long rest to avoid exhaustion, a monk can basically go on forever with short rests. The players don't know what they're doing either. It's important to remember the role that a monk fills. They're a skirmisher, someone who's supposed to be annoying the whole time. Get in, punch them silly, get out. The class features and subclasses reflect this. They don't do the most damage, but they do provide some utility that other classes have to specifically spec into. The fun part of Monk is that you can be an off anything and be helpful to the party. Provide support in certain areas to supplement the major roles in D&D. You can be an off tank with dodging as a bonus action in an enemy's grill. You can be an additional infiltrator with Shadow Monk, an off healer with Mercy Monk. Want more range? Sun Soul or Kensei have you covered in unique ways. Want to do more with Flurry of Blows? Open Hand is right there and waiting for you. You want to absolutely break Tomb of Annihilation? Play Drunken Master Monk. While Monk may never be the best at any one thing, they are a martial jack of all trades that gets all of their stuff back on a short rest. Nothing can reasonably shut them down or can shut them down for long. Their punches get around resistances and they can end certain conditions on themselves. Some things shouldn't work with it because of how it's worded, but rules as intended, and that effect on yourself is an action, baby. And neither wall nor liquid surface can stop a monk from getting where they need to go. Love a good Swiss Army knife. The cool bits! Now's the part of the show where I defend some of the main class features that aren't talked about or that people think are lame. Let's get the big one out of the way. Tongue of the Sun and Moon. People think this is a useless ability, but it's not if the DM isn't a coward. Our world is filled with people who don't speak English as a first language, and plenty of people don't even speak English. While it is called common because it's its namesake, a living, breathing world has places that don't. Not needing to pack tongues and spend a valuable spell slot is handy. Languages are something that should be utilized more in D&D games in general. It allows for the flavor of the player character to come through, and when a monk can understand every spoken language, it'll solve a lot of cool and interesting scenarios, or just be plain funny. And let's be honest, is your Blaster Sorcerer with 15 leveled spells total going to pick up tongues and spend a spell slot when Fireball exists? I hear all the time that a feature is useless or bad for classes when a spell solves the problem. But the question becomes, unless you're a wizard and have the funds and access to all these different spells you could potentially prep for the day, are you really going to? Tongues has a time limit and requires resources. A class having it naturally creates value and allows for a caster to free up that slot for something else. The only other class I could see taking it is Bard because high charisma tends to be the face. But here's the thing, the monk doesn't need a good charisma score or be the face to still make use of this ability. Translators in real life don't have to be charismatic, and they might have to be on their feet in case something doesn't have a direct parallel, but they are not expected to be the showstopper. They must be clear, and when you know what everyone is saying at any given time, it bridges the gap without issue. And it can also provide ample situations for hilarious shenanigans. It does come online at level 13, but then that gives the casters an opportunity to swap out the spell for something else. Also, let's talk about the main ability scores tied to the class. People will go on and claim that Monk is a mad class, or multi-ability dependent, which, it's just two guys. It's just Wisdom and Dex. It doesn't make sense at all that some think that these are bad ones to use. Dex saves are common all the time, and when is Wisdom not useful? Insight and Perception checks are, I would wager I guess, some of the highest called for skill checks in the game. Some will argue you also need Con, but even a +2 Con is still halfway decent, and when once again no one is a one-man army and the class can dodge as a bonus action. When Barbarian over here is even more of a mad class. If you want to be the most effective Barbarian you can be, you need a good Dex, Con, and Strength. Sure, Barbarians have a d12 hit die, so they are more spongy than a monk, but isn't it better to not get hit to begin with? Barbarians also leave very little room for wanting to be good in any of the mental stats, subtly funneling the player into one type of character, which is just lame. Unless you roll for stats and get decent ones, there's very little that can be done about potentially wanting to play against type if you want to play more optimally. Monk allows for more inherent options and flexibility by having Wisdom be the other core stat. When I play D&D, nothing feels worse than feeling like I can't help out of combat. And don't get me wrong, I played a Barbarian till level 15 and I loved playing her. But I was able to have more flexibility in who her character was because I didn't have to dump all the mental stats. Diamond Soul is a fantastic ability that gives you proficiency in every saving throw, and comes online at level 14, a level where it's appropriate for a class to get it. You can see the problem. It's in the third tier of play, not something a lot of people get the opportunity to experience. But it shouldn't get discounted or worse, ignored, because DMs don't like running past level 10 or games fizzle. It continues to show that monks can be self-sufficient in nearly any scenario. Nothing can reasonably shut them down in a meaningful way. If I can have a brief aside real quick, and I will, it's my video, it seems to be a common sentiment that DMs don't like running high-level games, or that many D&D games fizzle with no proper conclusion. People talking about this and then discounting the game mechanics of class features because people don't get to experience it isn't the game's fault. In all honesty, I don't know who people are really blaming here. Games fizzle for a number of reasons, and even if in 5e the sweet spot is levels 5 to 10, if WotC didn't want more levels past 10, we wouldn't have them. It's a weird complaint that kind of boils down to a Dandori issue, and it's incredibly unfair to dismiss talking about certain class features because they're in tiers 3 and 4. It's a different discussion on whether or not something should come earlier or later, but whether or not any given player gets to actually reach those levels shouldn't be factored into the discussion. Oddly enough, spells are largely exempt from observation. Talking about deadly combos like Force Cage and Cloud Kill, or discussions of Wish, the most well-known 9th level spell, is it because of white box theory crafting? Maybe. Who knows? And now for things I just like about Monk that I think are really cool. Slow Fall. Niche use case, but always helpful. I'm the type of player to always take Featherfall because you never know when you'll need it. So the fact that monks for the most part never really have to worry about fall damage ever is really cool. It's one of those things that you may never need, but you're thankful if you do. I adore most of the subclasses and love the flavor and options they provide. To go down the line from something I like from each subclass, I love the off-healing from Mercy Monk and the ability to get in more damage with Hand of Harm. You'll never be out healing a cleric or a high-level cure wounds, but having more options for emergencies is never a bad thing. Shadow Monk's teleport is one of its best features. It leans into the monk getting places quickly and can help supplement their ability to get up someplace until they hit level 9. I like the damage options available in Ascendant Dragon. It gives a monk more options in case they run into a rare vulnerability and gives them range and an AoE with a breath weapon they might not otherwise have. Astral Stealth lets you have a JoJo stand and have greater reach. It's also the only subclass to directly encourage you to bump up the wisdom stats since you can replace your attacks and strength checks with your wisdom score instead. Drunken Master Monk lets you disengage for free and additional movement to your speed for the turn when you use Flurry of Blows, which is helpful, and you can literally hit a motherfucker with another motherfucker when enemies miss. It's great. Way of the Four Elements. But in all seriousness though, I really like Water Whip and being able to manipulate people from afar like that. I just wish the subclass wasn't key point hungry. Kensei has a really unique and cool edge case for making the whip super useful. It gives you ranged melee and makes the whip a viable source of damage since the martial arts die can apply to your weapon. Way of Long Death isn't super useful, but I like the flavor, and at level 11, when reduced to 0 hit points, you can spend 1 key point to just say, "Nuh-uh," and be at 1 HP instead. It's great. Opened Hand, I think, should be standard across Monk as an overall feature, and then it gets to do more cool stuff. Flurry of Blows interactions that let you take away someone's reactions until the end of your next turn, that's amazing. Or knocking someone prone or even just pushing them away is cool too. Sun Soul gives the monk radiant damage at range. That's rad. And you can basically Flurry of Blows with it too. And finally, Cobalt Soul Monk, while yes is critical role content, is one of the coolest monks out there. Extract Aspects is not only super helpful and gives the party a way to know information about a creature in character, it also allows you to hit them back as a reaction if they miss you with an attack. So awesome. While WotC may be afraid to make Monk good, there's still so much fun to be had with the class. It's a safe bet to say that while the way D&D is played has shifted and changed over the years, it doesn't mean that the class features are inherently useless or actually that bad. It's easy to get lost in the sauce and worry about casters or other classes, but to paraphrase wise words, if a player makes a detective and you never give them a mystery to solve, you're doing that player a disservice. If you have a monk, shoot them. People pick classes for a reason. Monk in particular provides a unique play experience that, while it can be challenging to provide for from a DM perspective, it's worth it to stretch those creative muscles and will ultimately make someone a better DM. I wish with all my heart that Monk was more officially supported by 5e itself and by the community at large, but it'll never dampen my love for the class.